So it's been a while since I've talked about anything Star Wars related in one of my videos. Truth be told, it's because I've been working on a big video regarding the Clone Wars that I was hoping to get done by the beginning of May, but has been taking so long to really get going that it might be finished by the end of the year. I've reached a new level of no life. Quite the achievement for a Star Wars fan. So to cope with the length of time that video would take to be completed, I figured I'd try something smaller.
Yep, guess I'm Oogly-goo!
That's right, I've decided on ranking every single lightsaber duel in Star Wars. This includes the movies and the shows. You know, just a small feat. But really, these are the moments that many people immediately look back on for these movies. These scenes are what a lot of fans judge each movie and show for. Bad duels mean a bad movie or a bad show. Good duel means defending Phantom Menace of any faults it has because the duel's fucking badass. And sometimes means a good movie or show. For me, yeah, I love this concept of laser sword fights so much that part of the memorability factor of these products are the quality of their duels. It's obviously not all I look at with these projects, but I do like to look into these and what I take away from them. So for the criteria of this ranking, I'm looking at many things. The choreography, the filmmaking, their memorability, how they affect the characters involved, what they do for their movie or show's story, and the emotional factor of them and if I truly care about them. Also, when I say lightsaber duels, I mean each opponent has to have a lightsaber of sorts. None of this Praetorian Guard or Beskar Spear bullshit. It's lightsabers or nothing. And yes, this means every canon lightsaber duel, including some small ones you probably wouldn't think about for this list. Again, if they swing laser swords at one another, it counts. Anyways, let's get started. This is easily the laziest duel between two characters ever. They clash one time, Obi-Wan gets kicked back, and that's it between them. This fucking sucked. Easily the most forgettable duel in the Clone Wars from the most forgettable arc in the Clone Wars. Hey look, a match made in heaven, love that for them. Also, dual blue-bladed Grievous is not a vibe. That's all I have to say, bye. Shouldn't really count this knowing how forgettable it is. And that's all I have to say. Fun. This battle is only this low because it's literally 3 strikes from Terra and that's it. Ahsoka doesn't have anything to do with the actual duel, so that's what brings this down by default. The scene itself is great and shows a dramatic shift for Ahsoka's character, but this entry is about the people in the duel and there's not much to talk about here. Even the bad lightsaber duels have more things to talk about. So, moving on. Guys, I don't think this movie's fights are any good, and we'll get more into them later, but this small scene sucks for multiple reasons. But for this fight alone, the editing is just bad. Like, I can barely tell what's happening because it's so fast. I like the part where Dark Rey closes up her lightsaber to trap the other Rey, but then it's ruined by this stupid shot of her teeth. God, what's this movie's deal? Anyways, bad scene, bad duel, moving on. For his only real duel in the Clone Wars, they really did Mace Windu dirty with a very bland fight with Mother Talzin. But then again, he's an absolute war criminal and scumbag, so fuck him. I like the sword that Talzin uses, it's pretty unique, but that's about all the good I could say about this fight. This is just a training lesson for Savage with his brother. It does have a cool final move from Maul and proves who's the master and who's the bottom bitch, but it's too short to speak about anything else. This is just another training fight. Cinematography good, CG Leia face bad. Moving on. Okay, here's the first real fight in this series I have a lot to talk about. Yeah, this is really not good. First off, you can clearly tell the digital face replacement on Christopher Lee's stunt double's face. Like, it's distractingly bad. Secondly, the choreography itself isn't memorable all that much, except for this petty ass swing from Anakin cutting off the lights. Nice going, dipshit. You deserve what's coming with this goofy looking arm slice. This also leads into the single reason why this fight is lower than most. These stupid ass quick cut close up shots ruining all sense of tension because what the fuck? They're barely hitting each other and it's like they're making little effort to make the swings look effective. It's so jank, I hate it. I do like some things from this fight, like how Christopher Lee plays up Dooku's playfulness during the Obi-Wan section. Like he's just toying with him and knows how to beat him. This small moment of Anakin clashing with two lightsabers is so fucking cool and I wish it was a bit longer. Also, the sound design is god tier here.
Surely you can do better.
But god, I really don't like this fight and its multiple stupid moments. You know what? I'm including the Yoda Dooku fight here. Fuck it. Stupid shit doo-doo fight. I hate it. Now I'm in the camp of people who don't mind Yoda having a lightsaber since it does make sense for all Jedi to have a lightsaber. But I think he should only use it as an absolute last resort, since his ability with the Force is unparalleled. Clone Wars Yoda understood this, and thus, I think he's the perfect blend of both trilogies Yoda. But we're not talking about that Yoda, are we?
No.
Not only does this duel suck with the floaty ass CG on Yoda and him jumping around a lot, but the Force battle he has with Dooku is so lame.
Powerful you have become, Dooku.
Powerful my ass, throwing only pipes and rocks at you. I guess the Force Lightning battle was fine, mainly because it does effectively show how powerful and strong Yoda is with the Force and the awesome music backing it. But those factors and the use of Yoda's theme during the moment he stops the pillar from crushing Anakin and Obi-Wan are the only good things from this fight. Despite this fight not being at the bottom, this is my personal least favorite duel in the series. The other fights are lower because they're either superfluous or barely even fights, which makes me not care for them at all. This fight has me feeling something at least, which is objectively better than nothing. But that feeling is hatred. I hate it so much. I hate this with a furious passion. I hate this. You know, you wouldn't know it from this list, but I actually fairly enjoyed the Ahsoka series. I didn't love it, but it had some interesting ideas and concepts for many characters, and has at least one really good episode I look back on fondly. But seriously, this first fight was so ass! Why does the camera have to be so close to the characters to the point where Shin's cape looks like it's about to hit the camera? Why is the choreography so mediocre and basic? And of course, why that stupid ass fucking ending? Like, it's one thing to survive this when in other cases people just flat out die. It's another to have that keep on swinging when this should at least incapacitate her instantly and then be able to walk, talk, and fight in future episodes like it's just a minor scratch. Sabine really should have died after this fight. And I think it would have helped service the story, tone, and characters of the show better. I hate this scene and what it takes away from this show. Here it is, the most janky fight in the Clone Wars. This was obviously back before the show perfected their duels when the movements were a lot more robotic and stiff, and this is the crowning jewel of it all. It just looks so unnatural, not to mention unfinished, making moments like this.
Now you die.
Feels so phony. If there wasn't great voice acting and a great score, this would easily be the worst lightsaber duel in the series. This fight is this slow simply because there's a whole lot of stupid here. Why didn't Grievous immediately kill Ahsoka after he knocked her and her troops unconscious instead of killing Rex when he poses a little threat to him compared to the girl with the lightsaber? Why did Ahsoka just run off, potentially leaving her troops to be slaughtered by Grievous? Could she not sense him when he was hanging over her? Why didn't he just kill her when he had her in his grasp instead of just boasting to her? I mean, I like the very last part of this fight when he slashes into the vent she's entered. Kind of wish this was like a chase scene, making Grievous more actively threatening than just him not using his ears when Ahsoka's barely whispering into her intercom. Stupid fight and a stupid arc. Moving on. This fight is just more of another obstacle in Savaj's path than an actual duel, since he has to deal with the Tordarian soldiers and droids at the same time as he's fighting the Jedi. The final bit where Savage is being shot to shit only for him to push away all of his opponents is cool, and I really like this moment of him charging at the Jedi. Scared the shit out of me as a kid, that's for sure, but those are the only notable things about this fight. It's Cad Bane wielding a lightsaber against Obi-Wan. What the fuck do we have to complain about? To be honest, I forgot all about this fight. Ezra is such a bad duelist that most of his solo fights barely registered to me as actual duels. The most this fight does is introduce the 7th sister and the 5th brother and the rapport with each other, and I guess it also shows how selfless Ezra has become, trapping himself with the Inquisitors to save Sabine, but that's about it. Much like most of the Inquisitors, I don't much care for this fight. Yeah, the Acolyte. Anybody got a drink? Pretty disappointed that a lightsaber fight with a Wookiee was this boring. I get that Wookiees are giant beastly creatures, so they would move a bit slow, but I didn't expect them to take a fucking millennia to swing at someone. No need for any of these slow-mo shots, they already pollute this entire fight. And I would feel more emotionally engaged in this fight if any of these characters were at all interesting. I don't give a shit about Count Naka. Do you give a shit about Count Naka? Be f***ing for real. There's a couple of okay choreographed moves, but that's about it. You don't have to worry about being replaced, Gunji. You're still the superior Jedi Wookiee by far. I'm down for a good training duel, as you'll see later on, but this fight is both unmemorable and annoying. At first I was fine with the different sounds for the lightsabers as their settings are turned down to unlethal, but they just get on my nerves after a while. Speaking of getting on my nerves, Ezra! Hey buddy, how you doing? This fight just has him whining and complaining the whole time and I kinda hate it. Yeah, you'll come to realize as the video continues, but I've come to really not like Ezra. Admittedly, I'm only refreshing myself on the series through these duel clips, and I would need to rewatch the whole series to gain more context to everything since it's been a while. But just from these clips alone, we're on season 2 of this show, and Ezra is still acting like an annoying little shit. And this is some of the worst from him.
You lose, you die.
Yeah, and you win by killing an Inquisitor.
Dude, if you do that again, I'm gonna punch you. I'm not kidding.
I like some of the moves here, like how Ezra jumps up a door to catch Kanan off guard, only for Kanan to tell him, bitch no, and have his saber pointed up at his stomach. And Ezra using the blaster pulses was neat, but damn it, I just don't like Ezra. Yeah, as time's gone on, this fight keeps getting worse the more I think about it. And now that I've rewatched it again, yeah, it sucks. The setting really does carry this fight. What can I say, I'm a sucker for fights that take place in the rain or on the ocean. It looks good. I like the water. Now let's talk about the fight. Yeah, it's not good. It's so slow and awkward. The moves just don't feel smooth or have any energy to them. There's a point in this fight where the characters just stand there waiting for something to happen. But not like in a make your move kind of way like in the Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Maul fight, but more in like a, bitch, we're running out of time here. I'm getting bored just waiting for you to make some sort of move. Just do it already. The cinematography and editing really hamper my enjoyment for this fight too. There's only like 2 kind of good shots here, like before the fight with them standing between Palpatine's throne, and this one superfluous shot of them after Finn yells out to Rey. But then again, why are they not in center frame? Like, there's nothing happening on the other side of the shot besides some crashing waves, so can we just like tilt the camera a little to the left. The general lack of a memorable score actually hurts this fight since its absence makes all the strikes more underwhelming and the emotions non-existent. The moment where they stop each other's lightsabers is really dumb. Like a lot of Jedi and Sith would have been alive if they just used this one game-breaking move. I like the sound for it, but it's still very stupid to me. I guess when Leia calls out to him and dies trying to help him is fine, but overall, this is easily the most empty fight in any of the movies, and for a scene that was meant to be the turning point for Ben Solo, it's not that convincing. What was wrong with this movie? Why did it have to be this annoying? The first duel with Qui-Gon and Maul is not great. Most of my flaws with this duel are due to the editing. It's really bad with cuts that just don't make sense. Like we have 2 shots angled at Maul's robes that barely tell you anything that's going on with the fight, and thus it hampers what could have been a really cool short fight that shows Maul's skills as a duelist. There are some cool shots like this quick wide shot of them with the dust of the sand trailing with them, but that's the word best used for this fight. Quick. No shot hangs long enough to understand most of the fight choreography or the emotional engagement it might have, since this is the first time a Jedi had to face a Sith in many years. Qui-Gon should have had a much bigger reaction to this fight even happening than he does, and we cut away from the fight too long to focus on the rest of the crew flying to save Qui-Gon. Obi-Wan should have immediately started flying to save more of the pacing, since that's his master and friend in danger. I'm not saying this fight should have been the length of the Obi-Wan and Anakin fight in episode 3, but it should have been long enough to feel impactful, and again, it's because of how rapid the editing and coverage is. But what holds this fight from being lower is the music. For how quick this fight is, John Williams packed a really nice punch to it. I really like the booming drums leading into the fight, and the part where the ship takes off is really heroic and hopeful. That's the reason that makes this fight memorable to me, but everything else is just brought down by poor choices in the filmmaking. Also, where did Maul's bike go? In contrast to the last fight, the editing really does carry this one. This fight does have a fun gimmick of the characters changing from one location to another due to their connection to the Force. In particular, I've always loved this shot of the location changing as the 2 circle around each other. I think it was also the angle that helped sell it. Other than that, the choreography is not impressive, Rey's fighting style has not changed since Force Awakens, which is annoying, and I hate what this scene means for the story, but that's for other reasons. Also, does anyone else find it weird that this is the only fight in the trilogy where Ben keeps his helmet on? As time has gone on, I've kind of grown to not really care about this design of the helmet, so maybe I like his other fights because his face is more appealing. This fight is just one elongated chase scene as well as introduction to the 8th brother, a character only introduced to die. What was his character? I don't know, man, stop asking brick wall questions. As a chase scene, it's nothing special. I like the implication that Ahsoka discovers that the Inquisitors are after Maul while chasing him. The helicopter lightsabers are still stupid, but they look cool. Ezra's still fucking useless here. Whatever, this fight is meh. Okay, first,
So this is the belly of the beast.
what was that lip syncing though? Secondly, this fight's pretty meh, not gonna lie. It's not inherently awful, but not super memorable. Honestly, it's more engaging with the cross-cutting between this and the search for the traitor clone. Without that, it's a pretty whatever duel. I like the banter between Obi-Wan and Ventress and the part where they fling books at each other. That's a pretty cute moment. But otherwise, this fight is barely memorable, and Anakin and Obi-Wan were really stupid for just walking to restrain Ventress. Why didn't you both just, I don't know, use the Force at all? This fight was honestly just cinematic white noise to me. At this point in the series, I really couldn't care less about Shin as a genuine threat to the gang, because she sucks at being one. And this fight wasn't doing her any more favors. I like the part where Sabine blocks her blade with her armor. There's actually a pretty cute moment where Ezra argues for them to just be taken prisoner. The show actually made Ezra likable. I think this is something to celebrate about. But besides that, Shin gets bodied even harder here than ever before, and I just can't care about her anymore. This fight just lacks stakes. I'm a bit disappointed by this duel, mainly because of how short it was. Like, not some 10 minutes into the fight, Grievous is just immediately fed up with this and wants to leave. Ultimately, this fight feels rushed, almost like an afterthought to include. There's not even any memorable moments in this fight besides Ventress cutting off one of Grievous's arms, which we've already seen many other opponents do before. Really, this fight isn't lower due to the novelty factor of Dooku's apprentices facing off against each other, but that's about it. Easily the weakest fight between these two, and they fought a lot, so there were a few to choose from. This is mainly due to not many memorable moments in the choreography. Like, the most I remember is not even them fighting, but Kanan stabbing through the door panel to stop them from going through because he did it in a cool way. Besides that, this fight is not very memorable. I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I never liked this fight. Even with the memes, guys, memes can only take something so far, and honestly the memes only just highlight the weaknesses of this fight. When he immediately kills Aegon Kolar and Sussy Tin with little ease, I just feel nothing and it just looks so stupid. I know fans are gonna say, oh well actually they aren't just standing there, Sidious is just too fast for them. My counter to that is, what in the filmmaking makes this look like he's moving faster than God? Even with that input, it still looks awkward as hell, and really does the rest of the fight. The middle portion has some really nice hits and moves in there. The shot of Windu glaring into Palpatine's eyes is threatening as hell. I love that this fight takes place in the crimson walls of Palpatine's office. The window crashing looks cool, and the music is just horrifying, I love it. But it's clear to see the issue with this fight. The actors are too damn old. I love these guys, but seeing Ian McDiarmid trying to hit Samuel L. Jackson just looks really jank. Also, the CG Palpatine jumping around looks weird, and I don't know where Windu is looking or going in the shot. This fight honestly didn't need to go like this. Honestly, what I would do to improve this fight, knowing how pivotal the scene is just cut the other 3 Jedi and the duel itself and have it be at Anakin's POV. We're already invested in him contemplating what to do next and waiting for his turn, so make the scene more about his internal struggle. Then we can have him enter as usual and have the scene as it was before. That way we're as clueless as Anakin as to who started the fight, and we question even more about his decision later on. I don't know if this completely solves the problem of this fight, but doesn't that sound interesting at least? Anyways, disappointing fight, didn't need to go in this direction, and how the f*** are you going to embarrass my King Kit Fisto like that? Yet another fight I didn't ask for. Sure, as a kid, I thought the prospects of the Master of Light facing off against the Master of Dark in a lightsaber duel was the coolest thing. But then again, I also thought Jar Jar was a good character, so clearly children should never have opinions. I'll say this fight is bolstered both by the amazing music that mixes between Anakin vs Obi-Wan and Duel of the Fates that fits so well with this fight deciding the fate of the galaxy. They actually have a cool force battle at the end, and we don't see Ian McDiarmid's face at all, so the CG body and choreography aren't as distracting as the previous fight with him. But besides that, again, it's just the idea of these two having a lightsaber duel in the first place feels wrong to me. At least with their fight in the Clone Wars, it's a fight that happens through a vision of the future and doesn't actually take place. And it's more of a mental challenge for Yoda on what he sees as the best for the future. So I'm more lenient to that fight. Here though, it just feels out of place. It starts off well with the two using their respective force abilities, but then divulges into CGI creature versus CGI creature. and I still can't stand the ending of this fight. Why doesn't Yoda get back into the fight? Palpatine's just dangling there. Use the Force to pull him down. Did that fall finally give you a reason to use that cane of yours? Hell, if you wanted Yoda to just leave the fight, have clone troopers shoot down at him or something. Have Warren Taz fat ass waiting to squish him. I don't know, just something. This one aspect just pissed me off more about this fight. It has its great elements, but still not one of my favorites. As time has gone on, this fight continues to get worse. I know this is meant to be Obi-Wan as most weak because he hasn't been using the Force for a literal decade by now, but even with that fact, there's nothing in the filmmaking or pacing of this fight that makes it all that special. I like seeing Obi-Wan totally afraid of seeing the monster he created, and I thought the editing for when he's scrambling around with his lightsaber as Vader taunts him was really good, but then it just leads to a lackluster shot of Vader just walking up to him. Ooh, how scary. Why would Obi-Wan be walking into an open field if he's too scared about being found? Did he suddenly forget hiding was an option? The fight itself is just pretty meh. I can excuse it for story reasons, but at least make the compositions of the shots more interesting or stop cutting the fight so fast. Admittedly, I really like the moment where Vader drags Obi-Wan through a pit of fire as a way of payback for what he did to him all those years ago. It's so petty, I like it a lot. But then the conclusion of this fight is just as stupid as the Yoda vs Sidious fight. Vader just lets Obi-Wan go even though he can just swoosh away the fire with the Force like he already did. Or, you know, he could just step through the fire. That doesn't seem to be an issue to him. What happened? Did you lose your balls in the fire as well? Or are you just too scared to grow a pair? At least with this fight, one opponent is knocked out unconscious, so the fight couldn't continue past this. So it gets more of a pass than the bullshit conclusion of Yoda versus Palpatine's fight, but it's still so contrived. I'm more disappointed by this fight than I should be because it's the first fight these two have had since Revenge of the Sith, and it's treated as something so miscellaneous and boring. Just kill him! You know, for all the shit I throw out the Clone Wars movie for, well, almost everything, the final duel with Anakin and Dooku isn't that bad. It's actually pretty decent. There isn't as much jank in the animation as there was in the Obi-Wan and Ventress fight. It feels a bit more kinetic. I like that the first half of the fight is just Dooku talking shit and Anakin not saying a damn thing. And the score from Kevin Kiner is probably my favorite section of music from the film, adding a sense of finality and clashing between hopeless and hopefulness. But the fight does fall apart in the second half after Dooku slashes Anakin's back, thinking he killed the dumbass baby Hutlet, only for it to be rocks. You really couldn't sense that yourself, Dooku? Also, I question who is recording Ahsoka for Dooku to have this hologram of her, since everyone in the near vicinity of her is fighting her. You were stranded in the middle of the desert. Shut your dumbass up. Overall, this fight is fine. It's got a good balance of good and bad, making it a pretty average fight. Do I need to explain why this is so funny? This fight is just barely higher than the last, merely for just Baylan being more of an imposing threat than Shin, and he does make Ahsoka work for a victory. I like this pose that Ahsoka pulls up with, it feels unique to her. I also just like how controlled Baylan is during this fight. His style is just very cool and powerful. But the reason why this fight is low is simply because it means nothing. Take it out of this episode and nothing changes. Baylan still goes on his merry way to God knows where, and Ahsoka just rides off to get her friends. Except this time she's on a horsey. Really, this fight is just here to be an action scene and nothing more. For a fight that's just largely there to have it in the episode, this wasn't that bad. This is mainly due to the great agility of both characters, the choreography actually being pretty smooth, showing how far the animation team has gone into the series so far, and Ahsoka's more efficient style of combat. Not much else to say here, it's just a neat filler duel with a clip of Ahsoka tripping over an old lady that I shall show people without any context at all. Honestly, the only reason I remember this duel is not for the duel itself, but for what Ezra does. He dives a bit into his dark side by raising this big ass panther creature from this pit and uses that against the Grand Inquisitor. For once, I'm intrigued by this development for Ezra, a thing I never thought I would say. That being said, the duel was sort of whatever. I like the mystical score backing it, and the part where Kanan blocks a spinning double-bladed lightsaber was cool, but that's really about it. For once, Ezra is the best part of a fight. Enjoy it while it lasts. Now, let me explain why this fight is higher than most despite only having 2 clashes of blades within it. This is basically a big homage to Obi-Wan and Grievous' duel in Revenge of the Sith, with some tweaking here and there. We start with the character jumping into the fight, followed up with the ultimate greeting,
Hello there,
and even a General Kenobi afterwards.
General Kenobi.
Then we have Obi-Wan showing off his sick moves against a couple of droids, with him running off this time instead of Grievous. Then comes some funny shenanigans, they fight. Only difference is that Obi-Wan finds a more civilized solution and fucks off somewhere else. Is this just me trying to pull a good reason for putting this fight higher on the list out of my ass? Oh, definitely, but you can't tell me that there isn't a certain charm to this fight. I mean, come on! Grievous said the first canonical hello there before Obi-Wan to Obi-Wan. I just think that's funny and flattering of Obi-Wan to return the favor. This fight is a lot more angry than I remember it being. Like, Dooku doesn't let up at all during the first half of this fight, and it makes the fight a lot more intense. Then he resorts to his Magna Guards to do the rest of the fight, only sporadically joining in and ending the fight, which hampers this fight a lot. I like when Dooku is more involved in the fight, but it feels more empty when he excuses himself.
Hello there.
You know, for the cultural impact this fight has had, the fight itself is somewhat whatever. Speaking only on the saber fight itself, it has the build up with the awesome music and the towering stature of Grievous along with the 4 arms, but once we get into the fight, it just lacks the flair other fights have. Grievous moves way too fast for the camera to really focus on anything, along with the awkward angles of the cinematography. It doesn't make for a well choreographed fight. Also, this fucking whack ass off-center eye level shot of Obi-Wan kills me every time. I like that Grievous uses his other 2 arms as sort of a distraction and intimidation tactic for Obi-Wan. Matthew Wood's vocal performance is great as always, and the music is badass. A character like Grievous doesn't deserve a theme song that goes this hard. Overall, this fight is a mess, and is only this high on this list mainly for the memes it spawned and the iconic music. In regards to a fight's cool factor, this fight does ride on that. There's a couple really cool moments in this fight, like when Ahsoka stabs through this droid and uses him as a shield against Merrick, and when he pulls his lightsaber back and Ahsoka just slightly turns to dodge it. Almost like a homage to this small moment with Anakin in the Clone Wars. What this fight lacks is just emotional substance. It's just an action scene for the sake of having an action scene. I don't give 2 shits about Merrick, and because of how bland Ahsoka is portrayed in this show, I don't care when she's in a fight because how can she lose? The best fights in the series are when she has a chance at losing, and unfortunately, that rarely happens. It's a cool fight with neat choreography and not much else. Honestly, I don't really have that much to say about these 2 fights. Sabine and Shin's fight is better than the first time they fought because the cameraman finally decided to give these ladies some space while they fight for a change, and the choreography is much more clean. Plus, it's less stupid than the last. It's nothing to write home about, but it's fine. Ahsoka and Merrick's fight is just marginally better than their first fight, mainly due to the editing and the score. I really like them. They fit the vibe of this fight as a western shootout or a samurai showdown. It's neat. That being said, it still does not make up for the lacking emotional core and how forgettable Merrick is. God, remember when the internet was so interested in this guy? God, what a time. This fight is higher than the first and the last ones merely for their environments. I like the red lights of the hallway and the rain on the platform. Nothing else more to say, it's fun and has some neat elements in settings and obstacles. It's one of their shortest fights, but still memorable enough to be high here. First, let's get this out of the way. Why the hell would you make your surprise attack not surprising by screaming and swinging your lightsaber? Are you stupid or something? Was that your masterful plan? Why didn't you just place your lightsaber right behind his back and then turn it on? Sure, he probably still would have sensed it, but at least it would have been more of a logical surprise attack than this bullshit. But anyways, this fight is pretty good. If anything, this fight does a lot to show how much Vader loves to toy with his prey. He already knows his power, and he knows who doesn't have a chance standing up against him. So motherfucker doesn't use his lightsaber at all, and instead uses the Force to stop each swing from Reva. And not only that, but he stops Reva's spinning attack, pulls the lightsaber over to him, separates the two, throws her side on the ground for her to grab, and he uses one side of her lightsaber instead of his own. Fucking raw. There's still some awkward choreography here and there, like how hard is it to get off the floor here, Reva? But I just love how raw this fight is for Vader. And him capping it off with telling Reva that he remembers her from the temple and not giving a damn about it is badass. Admittedly, this fight is hampered down because Reva somehow survives being stabbed in the gut and is able to travel to a completely different planet to track down Luke like she wasn't stabbed before, but this fight's still pretty neat. The first fight between these two is pretty solid. It's brought down by Ezra's annoying comments as he shoots these useless pulse balls at the Grand Inquisitor.
The Jedi are dead, but there is another path. The dark side.
Never heard of it.
Dude, I warned you. I said I was gonna do that if you did that again.
But the rest of the fight is neat. This is Kanan's first real duel with an opponent other than his master, so it's natural that he's pretty sloppy with his skills. The Grand Inquisitor's moves are more refined and playful, and like a good bad guy, he uses this fight as a means to get into his opponent's head. He comments about Kanan's master Deba Balaba and how much worse he is than her. He notices he's using Form 3 and tells him, "You're trash at it." And he keeps telling him that he'll fail as a master to Ezra. I also like how cocky he just sounds in this fight. Jason Isaacs knew how to make his character as much of a smug son of a bitch as he could be with some of his delivery here. Even him just calling himself the Inquisitor at first I thought was pretty confusing since there's multiple of them, but with this attitude, it makes him a lot more cunning and egotistical. Yeah, not a bad first fight for Rebels. Also put those teeth away.
Why are you disrespecting me, bruv? No, this cannot be forgiven. Now empty the compartments of your pantaloons.
This really isn't an actual physical duel, rather a fight that plays out in Ezra's Jedi test, but still has two blades clashing together, so why not include it? This is slightly better than the previous fight, mainly because Ezra isn't shouting some stupid cringy quips. Also for the faces the Grand Inquisitor makes, like no wonder he's Vader's favorite, he reminds him of his daddy issues. His spinning attack is actually used here in the fight and it appropriately throws Kanan off, and the direction feels better used here than the last. It's still not high since it has literally no stakes to it being an illusion of a fight, but I still like it fine. I completely forgot about this fight, but honestly, it was pretty good. Ezra finally has a shot at figuring something out on his own in a fight, when his friends are possessed by these Night Sister ghosts and has to get them out. It's got good stakes, Maul being the little schemer that he is, and a nice moment for Ezra to grow from. Though again, he still makes some really bad quips.
Now you will pay the price.
I'm gonna have to owe you one.
Also, despite us knowing the solution to the problem, Ezra just has to say out loud what the solution to the problem is. Thanks, show, I was really lost there for a second. Good thing I know I'm stupid so you can explain it to me. The duels themselves aren't that memorable, which brings it down a peg, but it's unique enough to be placed high. For a fight that sort of starts out of nowhere, like damn, how the hell are you just gonna start an episode with attempted child murder like that? This fight is neat. For once, Kaden and Ezra have some nice rapport together. Them working together by using the Force to push them to their opponents is unique and fun. They both save each other in different ways, with Kaden catching Ezra before he falls, and Ezra calling for some animals to help them escape. Yeah, and that's really all there is to this fight, and that's fine. Also, there's this cringy moment.
Such a handsome face.
I don't go for crazy anymore.
That's alright. I prefer brains.
Not sure why they would include this moment, but oh. Wait, what the fuck? She's Daphne?
Hey, I can look at myself naked.
Oh, brother.
Yeah, I was a little bit disappointed by this fight. The main reason why is that there isn't much struggle for Sabine in this fight. Sure, she's using her tricks as a Mandalorian as well as a duelist, but there isn't much tension once the fight begins. That being said, the fight itself does have some cool moments, like when they crash out the window and when she disarms Gar. And the setting is neat and different enough from most other fights in the series. It's not an amazing fight, it feels a bit rushed. I don't know why they started playing the Force theme when neither of them use any Force powers. There should have been more noticeable damage to Gar when Sabine shoots fire at his face, and again, I wish there was more tension in the fight itself. But it does good at developing Sabine and has some cool moments here and there. But after Mandalorian Season 3, I really don't understand the functions of the Darksaber. First off,
chills. Literal chills.
Secondly, I like this little fight. It shows how much Ahsoka can hold her own now and think on the fly to defeat her opponent. Nothing much else to say. I like the snowy setting with the fire surrounding them, and I like that Ahsoka's solution was to use Vizsla's own tech against him. It does end too short to leave any more of an impact, but it was a nice action scene.
Despite my hatred for a lot of things in the show, the one thing I can't really complain too much about is the fight choreography of many of the action scenes here. They clearly have some martial arts inspirations with the emphasis on both hand-to-hand and melee combat, and they move at a much more brisk pace compared to other fights in the Disney Star Wars era. Minus that one awkward fumble. In this fight with the Stranger, sorry to the one person who didn't predict that the only other character it could have been for the twist reveal was the drug dealer, and the rest of the Jedi actually has some neat highlights in it. Everything is moving at a smooth pace. There's actually a few notable shots here that I liked. The deaths of the Jedi are shockingly brutal, and the use of this armor that when hit with a lightsaber causes them to cut short makes for a nice obstacle and a unique gimmick. So that's cool. I still don't give a flying feathery fuck about any of the characters here. Any potential for any of them to be interesting or grow a personality or develop is cut short here, so that's fun. The twist reveal was so stupidly obvious, even the stupidest person could have guessed it. And the fight ends because of bugs, because we apparently love to not learn from our previous mistakes. Honestly, if I just treat this sequence as just its own fan film like one you would find on YouTube, without the stupid and boring May and Osha plotline, this whole fight sequence is actually pretty dope. Glad it took over halfway through this series to get something sorta exciting.
This is easily the scariest and most intimidating that Grievous has ever been in a duel before. A phrase thought impossible to be said by man, unless you're talking about the 2003 Grievous. I think the editing helps provide a lot of tension in this scene and makes Grievous way more threatening than he's ever been before. The duel with Koth is ferocious. Despite being short, you can tell a lot from Grievous in this fight, and how he likes to play with his food. It is still short, and this being Koth's only duel in the series, it's not a good showing for him, but this duel is mainly used to show how dangerous Grievous could truly be. Where the first duel between these two was all talking and barely any walking, this fight has a lot more going for it despite being way shorter. I like how Grievous enters the fight with his spider crawl, upping his threatening presence. I like the many creative moves exchanged between the two, like when Grievous spins his sabers on the ground and Ahsoka has to roll away, or when Ahsoka rolls onto Grievous's back and jumps off it to escape. It's presented better, the score utilizes Ahsoka's leitmotif really well, and it shows how far these two have come in the war from their last duel together. I wish the kids Ahsoka was protecting had more to do to shake up the duel a bit, but still a short but sweet fight. I would say this was the first good lightsaber duel in the Clone Wars, and was a great redemption for Ventress as both a character and duelist from her fuck up in the movie. More than before, this is where we get a sense of Ventress as a threat and a person. She has a chip on her shoulder trying to prove herself, and an inferiority complex which we learn after Luminara compared her fighting style to that of her master Dooku. But we also see that even for a master as strong as Luminara, she could be bested by her, making her feel way more dangerous than her embarrassing battle with Obi-Wan. It does as a result make Luminara less competent of a fighter, but she still has her moments like when she collides with the Force with Ventress, and Ahsoka is still trying to be more calculated as a duelist besides just talking shit to them before failing spectacularly while still being caught up at certain moments. And I also like how we see the agility of each character at certain moments, it's pretty sick. The fight does start out a bit rough with a pretty unengaging first half, but once Luminara joins the fight, it gets so much better. If you need any reason to not watch the movie, it's to see the true start of Ventress's badass journey. This is probably one of the most competent duels Grievous has ever been a part of. First, after ferociously dueling Nadar, he just immediately bests him, shooting him down. Good. Then he's able to get the jump on Kit Fisto and get him on the back foot. He's a much more angry beast here, which I mean, yeah, I would be too if fuckers like these prepared to John Wick my ass. But the real highlight of this fight is just seeing how much of a badass Fisto is. Best shown when he sneaks around Grievous in the fog, and in this moment, which is just...
That power will only consume.
Lord have mercy, I'm about to bust.
It's nice that the lightsaber he gets from Grievous is Nadar's, showing that he still cared for his apprentice despite the dark path he was heading down. The only reason it's not higher is because it does feel too brief. Like, I feel like there was a section before this fight that was just missing. But yeah, really good duel, and yes, justice for Kit Fisto. To me, Tales of the Empire was a major step down from the excellence of Tales of the Jedi, and part of that is the rushed redemption arc for Barriss Offee. TLDR, the Morgan Espa story in the first half of the show did nothing for the show, and took away from what could have been a very interesting story for Barriss. If the 6 episodes were dedicated to Barriss's rise to becoming an Inquisitor and learning to come back from the dark, then it would have been a great story. But that aside, I really like this brief exchange of blades in the second episode. The choreography is neat, like I really like the contrast between how brash and ruthless Lynn's attacks are compared to Barriss's calm approach to the duel. The cinematography and editing helps bring more life to it. The animation looks amazing and really fluid, and I like that Barriss is just a part of this fight as a way of just conversating with the Jedi, and trying to make peace after what happened to the village Lynn slaughtered before this fight. My problem with this fight is just the emotional connection not being that strong here. I don't feel like I know this Jedi survivor enough to care about him even when he nearly dies. Maybe if it was someone that Barriss and Lynn knew in the Order before the Purge and we got a sense of their history, then it would have been more engaging to me. Alas, the fight is still pretty good, but it still suffers from the problems of the rest of the arc. It's just missing something to keep me engaged. A much better battle than the last time these three fought each other, mainly due to Ventress's latest development of being cast out of her apprenticeship from Dooku. This battle is more of a fit of rage from Ventress losing what seemingly was her only life. I like the detail of the Jedi acting calmly, just walking while fighting, while Ventress is just moving by instinct with very little thought. I will say I'm not a massive fan of the music here, as it does feel a bit too manufactured, which does bring this fight down a bit. Otherwise, I think the fight does a lot to show how betrayed Ventress feels at this moment, losing everything. With Ahsoka's return to the franchise in Rebels, I was so ready to see how she holds her own in a duel after the events of the Clone Wars. And while this fight isn't her best,
that comes later.
This fight still accomplishes its goals of showing how far Ahsoka's skills has come since her introduction. She barely breaks a sweat with these bozos, dodging most of their attacks and clashing hard with her sabers. I love how her leitmotif at the beginning of the fight now includes an angelic choir, making her feel more like a goddess from the past, coming back to strike down these fallen angels. And her ultimately ending the fight using the Force instead of her lightsabers perfectly shows her development exceptionally well. It's maybe not the most high energy fight of the series, which brings it down a bit and it isn't as emotionally compelling as it could have been, but still a nice reintroduction to my favorite character in all of Star Wars. This fight makes it this high mainly for its ending. The fight itself isn't anything crazy. I like the designs of the temple guards, lightsabers, and I like the dialogue between the two opponents, but there's not much in the choreography that stands out too much. But the ending of the fight holds it up higher than it would have been otherwise. We finally see Kanan graduate from being a Padawan trying to relearn the ropes to become a master to his own youngling, to an actual Jedi Knight, and the one that knights him was once his greatest challenge. We now know after this point that the Inquisitors are fallen Jedi taken after Order 66, and that the Grand Inquisitor was indeed a temple guard who at one point helped train other Jedi Padawans. This ending gives each character different layers of development and is one of the few great moments from this early section of Rebels. Maybe I wish Kanan had taken more time to realize who this guard was for maybe just a few more seconds, and the lighting during the fight does get obnoxiously bright at points, but it's an overall great end to this fight and the Grand Inquisitor's arc as a whole. For the only true lightsaber duel in Tales of the Jedi, Yaddle vs Dooku isn't anything crazy choreography or cinematically wise. It's what you would expect from free white-haired Dooku and female Yoda. I like that the fight doesn't rely on Yaddle jumping a shit ton like what would come later, making the fight more grounded. Then the highlight for this for me is the novelty that Yaddle of all Jedi was the one to fight Dooku at his turning point. I think that's cool that a character previously seen as mostly a joke by the fandom for just being a female version of Yoda had a role in one of the galaxy's most pivotal moments. You can also tell that Dooku never really wanted this fight as well, but has to, not just because he would be caught, but also killed by his master literally just standing right there. I also like the subtle imagery of the shadows of the room being behind Dooku the whole time, and Yaddle fighting in front of the open hangar door, shining light in the room, and Dooku's final strike on Yaddle just feels brutal, especially for him at this point, being the first of many Jedi he will eventually kill. It's not the most showy of fights, but it does well showing the downfall of a respected Jedi and him killing his past. Neat stuff, good on you Yaddle, you died good. Okay, let's first talk about the non-de-age elephant in the room.
Oh my god! What's wrong with your face?
It's really distracting to see a 40-year-old man still try to look 19. Hey Disney, you have the technology and the money. Why didn't you allow these VFX artists more of that money to allow them to de-age Hayden's face? There are people on YouTube who've done it very quickly, might I add, and they look great. It's very telling how hard it was to find the original version of this fight with the non-de-age look because everyone wants to forget about this. Anyways, I like this fight. The choreography is simple as it should be, knowing that this is just a training sequence between master and apprentice. I like that the score is appropriately mellow, knowing that Anakin will just get worse with his approach to combat and pay for it dearly. And this fight shows how the hubris Anakin had to win will lead him down a dark path, and ultimately, how much Obi-Wan failed to make moments like these matter to Anakin. Also, was it just me, or did the reuse of Ewan and Hayden's grunts and yells from episode 3 take them out of the moment for a second? This fight isn't anything special beyond just having Hayden and Ewan back at it again as their original selves, and they're great at it, even if I'm distracted counting the wrinkles on Hayden's face while they're fighting. Like I said, I'm surprised I found anything of quality in the show. Despite the show fumbling the bag in its execution of its story and characters, this fight was really freaking cool. Most of the choreography feels more impactful and smooth because all of it's in camera, not hiding behind any editing tricks. The environment is a lot more visually interesting than just a dark forest. There's at least some level of intrigue between Soul and Kumir, unlike any of the other characters, so I cared somewhat. I like that we see more of Soul's samurai-inspired movements, like how he pulls out his lightsaber. The sound design is really nice, like the way Kumir takes apart and puts together his lightsaber. And there's just a fast energy to this fight rarely seen in any of the latest lightsaber fights we've gotten. There's still some awkward moments like this shot of the two jumping down to the ground, and Kumir just going in for a punch when he could have just pulled the lightsabers to Soul a little quicker. But overall, despite the rest of the bullshit surrounding this fight, taken in isolation, is a really fun fight and by far the best in the show. This is easily the most engaging fight that Grievous has ever been a part of. We finally get more information regarding his motivations and reasons for joining the war, while also displaying his pure, undying hatred for the Jedi in this one battle. Granted, half of the time he isn't the one fighting Kenobi, as his Magna Guards do a lot of that for him, but once he gets into the fight, he is angry. He wants Kenobi's blood on his hands so bad. He will not settle for failure. Sometimes the choreography is a bit sloppy, and Kenobi had the perfect opportunity to do a signature move, but I think this fight is great for its way of analyzing this fractured character and his need for the kill. One of my favorite things about Ahsoka, amidst many other things, is that each duel she encounters throughout the series presents a unique challenge for her to be tested by. This duel with a mind-controlled Barriss is easily one of the hardest fights she's ever encountered. Not because Barriss is stronger than her, but it's merely because this fight is to save her. This is a moral challenge for Ahsoka, as Barriss wants her to kill her so that the creature inside her will not get into another person again. But Ahsoka is able to find a different solution, using the cold to her advantage and perfect timing to kill the creature. The duel itself isn't anything to write home about, but it's more what the characters involved have to encounter that makes it more memorable. I also like to think that similar to the clones whose inner thoughts of Order 66 turned outer when capturing Barriss, her inner thoughts of destroying the Jedi turns outer due to this creature. This duel feels more nuanced due to what comes after and the challenge presented to Ahsoka, and I just love it for that. First things first.
Failure.
Thank you, moving on. Damn, I never realized how frequent Obi-Wan was used for duels in this franchise, and this is one of his most unique. This battle tells a lot about why the Mandalorians were true warriors with this Darksaber, and how they could stand toe-to-toe even against the most powerful of Jedi. Obi-Wan struggles a bit with Vizsla. He himself moves really fast in a unique way to other opponents, and the sound design for the Darksaber is awesome. It does end a bit short, but honestly this fight is super underrated. Okay, one more time.
Failure.
This is probably one of the most challenging duels Ahsoka had up until this point in the series. She's already been through so much in this one arc in the show. To have a fight happen before she finds a way to prove her innocence, let alone having her opponent be one of her closest allies, is so brutal. Granted, this fight is mainly used to guide Ahsoka to more evidence that would frame her, but I also see this as a psychological battle for her. She's been framed by someone she doesn't know, her friends are out to bring her in, she doesn't know who to trust, she had to team up with Ventress of all people to get out of a pickle or two, and she's being led to something she doesn't even know what the hell it is. So to have that piled onto this fight, which she thinks was a ploy by Ventress to kill her or bring her in, yeah, this fight is mentally draining for her. The choreography has some neat moments, like when Ahsoka has to dodge a bunch of barrels. I like Barriss' no-chill, fast approach to the fight, almost like deep down she hates doing this to a friend, so she wants to be done with it quickly. And the fiery aesthetics give a nice touch to the fight. It's not the first thing I think of when I think about this arc, but it still does some neat stuff for the characters involved. It's really kind of insane that somehow, of all people, Kanan and Ezra ever actually fought Darth Vader. Like, did Vader really want to waste his time with these two? Whatever. I love that this fight helps build up the menace of Vader. Man barely says anything to these two, only just telling Ezra he ain't shit, let alone a Jedi. The music plays the same score that plays when he fought Luke on Cloud City, giving the tone even more of a fearsome vibe. He towers over the two of them, only using one arm to take them both out, and even when two Imperial walkers come down on him, it barely leaves a scratch on him. It's insane that none of these moments don't even crack the top 15 for his most badass moments, but it goes to show that no one can top the raw machine that is Darth Vader. Admittedly, there are some goofy moments here, like how Kanan just smacks his face on the crates in a cartoonish fashion. Anyways, neat fight, moving on. This is definitely one of the stronger fights from Rebels, mostly because the stakes feel more high. There's some really fun choreography with Kanan shooting at the guy with Ezra's pulse gun lightsaber, and the two just jumping and fighting at the same time, which does look kinda goofy looking, but it looks more believable than whatever the hell was happening in Attack of the Clones, and there's some great character moments from Kanan and the Grand Inquisitor. Kanan finally finds the strength in himself to beat the Grand Inquisitor, and the Grand Inquisitor shows some history of himself before he dies, saying that there are things that are more frightening than death, implying that he's experienced things from Vader and the Empire far more fearsome and terrifying than this very last scenario for him. The reason why this fight isn't higher is because Ezra does f*** all in this fight, literally just pulling Kanan's lightsaber to him and getting slashed in the face, which I feel like it should have just left more than just 2 lines on his face. Also, did Kanan think that Ezra was really dead from falling onto a platform that looks like it's not even 7 feet, or that the slash from the spinning lightsaber got him? He yelled out in pain and fell to another platform. Hello? But still, this fight is very good and a massive improvement from the other fights these two have ever had. This has basically the same energy as the last time Anakin and Dooku fought, but without much help from the Magna Guards this time, allowing for the sheer, raw tension of this fight to be at the forefront. This is probably the most smug Dooku has ever been in a fight in the entire series. He starts off the fight with this shit-eating grin on his face, talking with a cadence in his voice that screams,
"You will never get this, you will never get this, la 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 la."
The cinematography is more dynamic here, like when the camera shifts from side to side around the chair, showing Palpatine's enjoyment in this fight. There's some fun moments like how Dooku throws a bunch of forks at Anakin's robotic arm, or when Anakin slams down on Dooku's blade repeatedly, which I think is a subtle homage to when Luke does it to him in Return of the Jedi. Obi-Wan doesn't really do much in this fight other than help Anakin up and rescue the Chancellor, but overall, I really enjoy this for the absolute raw emotions being portrayed here. Finally, a great duel from this series. It could truly happen, people. Honestly, this fight, I think, is pretty underrated, all things considered. The choreography has some really neat moments, like when Baylan jumps and slams down on Ahsoka, and when she blocks his blade while holding her leg back onto the stone. There's also an actual goal to this fight, believe it or not. Baylan has to protect the star map to Thrawn, while Ahsoka has to destroy it. It has some tangible stakes behind it, and I like that. I also really like the cinematography, especially this one wide shot of the two as they switch up their stances. And the sound design for Baylan's saber sounds so powerful, I love it. They tried to give Baylan more character here with the illusion that he has a history with Anakin, which is a welcome change of pace for him. I wish the rest of the show cared about his character more. This fight does suffer from a rather lackluster ending with Baylan just swinging his lightsaber upwards, and that's what makes Ahsoka fall off the cliff. Seriously, that did it for you? It didn't even look that close to you or that powerful of a swing. But overall, a surprisingly great fight for this series. I don't think you can have more of a raw start to a fight than literally blinding your opponent. This whole episode was when Rebels truly got back to that good shit Clone Wars was made of. Pure, unapologetic brutality and badass character moments. The mask is off, Duel of the Fates nearly starts blasting, and we now know that Maul hasn't changed a single bit since we last saw him. A narcissistic, nihilistic, terrified being of pure agony. Though to be fair with this fight, the Ahsoka vs. Maul section does stumble in the sound department. Like, I don't know what happened with the sound mix here, but the clashes are just delayed. It feels very noticeable and takes away from the duel as a whole. But we see in the next part the true strengths of this fight. Even though Kanan is now blind, he's now testing his connection to the Force, focusing on when and where Maul will strike at him. The score drowns out, only hearing a sinister hum as Maul tries to psych him out, and Kanan proves he can still be a Jedi even without his eyes and defeats Maul. Kanan has gotten stronger with time, while Maul has only gotten weaker. But we'll see how strong Maul has been in due time. You know, if you're going to make the original Anakin vs. Ventress fight from the 2003 series non-canon, at least give us another cool duel with these characters. While it's nowhere near as badass as the original fight, I think what we got in Season 3 of the Clone Wars was really great. It has some dynamic cinematography, good use of Ventress's dual lightsabers, a MacGuffin for the characters to fight over with the DNA sample for the clones, and some really badass moments like when this clone catches the sample as Ventress pulls it back to her. We also get a brief moment of darkness from Anakin saying that he intends to let the clone shoot her down instead of letting her surrender. Great stuff mixed with some fun environments the characters fight in. I mainly love this for the direction and cinematography. All of it makes the choreography way more fluid and unique. I love this move from Anakin spinning around Obi-Wan to push because he thinks it's a good trick. Dooku is easily the most intimidating in this fight of any he's been a part of. The presentation of his look makes him look way more dastardly than he's ever looked. I do think it ends a bit too fast, but all of it makes for a super fun duel. But Jesus, I'm so done with the Pikes. Holy shit, kill them all! Thank you, Dooku, you did a great service. I'm just gonna clump together all these fights into one since they basically happen in a short span of time from one another, and I really don't want to keep separating these Inquisitor fights anymore. But with that, yeah, this is the best Inquisitor battle in all of Rebels. Because now they all fucking die! Such a treat for me. For real though, the Rebels team really did try a lot harder with this battle, knowing how significant it truly is. The reintroduction of Maul was a long time coming, and he still proves by far he's the most badass duelist in all of Star Wars. Sam Witwer still brings his all into this role. I especially love this small moment from him.
The next time you hesitate like that, it may cost you your life. Or the lives of your friends.
The way he transitions his voice from his vengeful, pained gruff that we're most familiar with, quickly to this quietly manipulative manner to trick Ezra into thinking he cares about his allies while in battle instead of just himself is incredible. I also love that he uses his cane in the first phase of the fight. Hey Yoda, why didn't you think about that, you hack? This fight just shows how manipulative and conniving Maul is and how he'll trick anyone in order to save himself, while also still showing how scared he is once he senses Vader getting closer. It's brutal. I like how Maul goes straight for the kills, while Kanan gives the last Inquisitor a chance to surrender, only for him to kill himself. And it just shows how much of a badass Maul truly is even at an old age. If the Kanan and Ahsoka side of the fight was more memorable, it would have been higher, but it's still a great fight nonetheless. This is probably one of the most thematically rich fights in the series. This whole sequence is just a mini retelling of the age of the Empire, from Anakin's killing of Dooku to the fight between Yoda and Sidious to the redemption of Vader and the death of Yoda and Sidious. It's really well paced for that reason alone, while also having some great character building for Yoda, willing to sacrifice everything for the good of the galaxy. I like how many homages to other Star Wars moments are here. Like how Dooku dies here is a combination of his fights in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, with Anakin slicing his leg like how Dooku did it to Obi-Wan, and of course his beheading with a similar sound effect for the aftershock of it all. I love that Yoda has so much to face in this fight, with his fight with Sidious as well as keeping the platform holding both of them and trying to save Anakin from falling to his death. Really the only thing holding this back is the lack of memorable choreography in the middle portion of this fight, but it's still a great fight with some subtle story beats and character progression. I'm gonna be honest guys, I really like this fight. As much as I also indulge in some sequel clowning, despite secretly liking 2 out of the 3 movies, the fights in the earlier movies I don't really have much to clown on, and this fight hits the ground running really well. First off, I think it's genuinely awesome how a normie like Finn can pick up a lightsaber, one might say the lightsaber of the series, and fight a literal Sith apprentice. He's completely in over his head, and yet, like he said previously in the movie, it's the right thing to do. Believe me, I'm just as disappointed in how they treated Finn's character later in the series, but he can have this one. The sound and choreography give off this sense of power and struggle that I vibe with so hard. The crispiness of Ben's lightsaber is so satisfying to hear, and I like that Finn does put up somewhat of a fight, landing even a hit on Ben. It felt like he earned it despite ultimately losing hard at the end. That's another thing I love about this fight over others. It looks painful. Each character really has to fight with their might here, and they won't look any pretty by the end of it. Rey gets slammed on the tree, Finn gets his shoulder and back sliced into, and Ben gets actually fucked up in this fight. It's crazy. Everyone gets a little bit screwed up here, and I love it. And the lack of score makes every hit feel all the stronger. I also really like the moment when Rey pulls the lightsaber over to her. And let's quickly talk about the one question every Star Wars fan has asked about this fight. How the hell does Rey beat Kylo Ren here? Simple. He got shot by a bowcaster not some 5 minutes before this fight, and he's completely emotionally unstable after literally killing his father. Despite wanting to do it, it still takes a heavy toll on him, and thus it makes him less focused during this fight. And also, have you seen how powerful a shot from a bowcaster is? And it's not like Rey is fully capable of beating Ben. She literally runs away from him for the first half of the fight, only to find the confidence in herself to beat him at the last minute. Sure, it does feel a bit unrealistic that Ben can't land a single blow on her after that, but I still feel like Rey earned a victory here. Plus, she's already had some training with a weapon like this on Jakku, so she's not entirely out of her league. I personally like to think that her getting the upper hand over Ben is her tapping into the dark side. The lady was ready to kill him by the end of the duel. Before you call me a sequels apologist for defending this fight, even though I just said I also like to make fun of some things from this trilogy, I still have some problems with it that holds it back from being higher. Sometimes the editing causes some of the choreography to flow less smoothly, and this is mostly just at the beginning of each fight. Like, it feels a bit too jumpy at points. I also think it's funny how Finn tells Kylo to come get this lightsaber, and then proceeds to run towards him with it, and that's really about it. The fight is just really good in my opinion. The setting is awesome, making the colors of the lightsabers pop out really well. The choreography feels really powerful. The cinematography is gorgeous along with the colors, and the performances here are very strong, especially from John Boyega. Shame this is the last great moment from Finn. See guys, I can complain too. Similar to the Yoda vs Sidious fight in the Clone Wars, this fight is mainly high for what it does for the story and Luke as a character. It's ambiguous and mysterious. You're asking questions as to what all this means. Why is Vader here? Is Luke really ready to fight him? Oh, he's dead, but was that for real? The helmet exploded and shows Luke's face. What does that mean? Is he looking into a mirror of his potential future? Is Vader somehow connected to Luke in some way? Is Vader a clone of Luke? That would be stupid, but it could be. It gives Luke pause, makes him afraid, and now he has to think about his role in the story and what Vader has to do with it. I also love the atmosphere of this fight with the smoke on the ground, the vines and wildlife surrounding them, and the dark color palette that makes this fight more of a horror scene than anything else. Sure, the choppy slow-mo hasn't really aged well, but this fight still looks beautiful in spite of that. I love this scene and this moment for Luke. It gives lots of nuance to his role as the Chosen One, and it foreshadows what's about to happen expertly without giving away the twist. Also, was it just my dumb idiot brain as a kid who thought this was Starkiller who got beheaded and didn't take into account that's supposed to be Luke? I don't know guys, I was just obsessed with Force Unleashed as a kid. Honestly, I still am. The novelty of this fight actually happening at all at this time was pretty heartbreaking regardless of the context surrounding it. The idea of Anakin having to fight his own Padawans sort of hit a spot for me that only got worse when Rebels came around. The context of this fight, for those who don't know, is Ahsoka being controlled by the Force entity called the Sun, who is the personification of the dark side. It basically brings out all of Ahsoka's insecurities and inner hatred and boils him up to be her entirely. And this fight really does show how much Anakin has cared for Ahsoka. A far cry from the movie, as well as how much Ahsoka has been holding inside her against her master knowing who he is. She wants him to be proud of her, she feels like she's not trusted at times, and she hates it when he calls her snips, thinking that's his way of undervaluing her. All this is also personified in the shackles Ahsoka still has from the prison she was in, a subtle touch to show how trapped she feels inside. The fight feels impactful for both characters, and my only criticism is that I wish Obi-Wan had more to say about the situation as he just walks into the fight and brings the dagger. There's more to the scene that's brilliant, but that's for a later time. Overall, a nuanced fight that deserves more credit than it gets, I believe. First off, is it just me, or does the music in the back half of this fight sound eerily similar to the Nazgul theme?
Leaving so soon, Master?
Anyways, this fight is awesome. It's a fight that tells its own story of loyalty and how it can easily be manipulated against someone until that loyalty is fully broken. I love that Savage barely gets any hits in, he only gets 2 in, and when he does, it feels powerful and weighty. He nearly does Dooku in at one point, if not for his Force Lightning. This really is Savage's ultimate test of loyalty until he's beaten down enough by both Dooku's lightning and Ventress's cruelty to fight for his own life. And the second half just shows how broken of a bond Dooku and Ventress have now, both wanting each other dead. It feels more intimate, made better by the contained setting. It's an overall great fight that does a great job at shifting each character's motivations around to make the battle more engaging. I still think Barris's portrayal is one of the most impactful in the entire franchise, knowing how trusted she was to Ahsoka, especially after she saved her life all those years back. We learn her reasons why, and personally, I agree with her outlook on the Jedi, but disagree with her approach. There's a moral complexity to this fight in hindsight, knowing how Anakin will turn out later, and how he indirectly took up her ideals, but you can't agree with her now knowing who's at stake. Immediately before the fight, we see Anakin speed walking angrily to her dorm, and shrouded in darkness when the door opens, almost like he already knows and he's trying to hold his anger in. Even the lighting in the room with the windows shades showing light and dark adds to these characters' complexities. I think it's nice to finally have a dual wielding match in the Clone Wars. It makes for a fun aesthetic choice and fresh movements in the fight that flow very smoothly. I love that the fight ends with Barriss pinned up against the Great Tree, which represents the heart of the Jedi, a heart that was lost by this fallen hero. It's not the flashiest of fights, but it does feel like one of the most personal and tragic. Through most of the franchise, Dooku went into every fight with so much smug confidence and arrogance that it's rare to see him in a place of pure vulnerability. Well, besides, you know, a minor inconvenient moment for him. So when he does enter a battle out of pure necessity to survive, it feels impactful. And that's what I love about his fight with Ventress and the Night Sisters. For context, Mother Talzin gave Ventress a poison dart to blind Dooku, as well as putting a spell of temporary invisibility on her and 2 of her sisters to confuse the Count. They enter the fortress, shoot the dart into his neck, and the fight begins. Dooku, now blinded, has to fight with his keen sense of the Force guiding him. I love that even blinded, Dooku still poses a major threat to Ventress. The sisters thought the fight would be easier with this advantage, only for Dooku to bring them back down to the ground with his skills with the blade and intense connection to the dark side. I also love the sound design of the movements of the sisters when cloaked in the mist. The sounds of the whispers give a more horror-centric tone to their every move. The The choreography is so smooth and feels more weighty than other fights in the series. The score in the second half of the fight is booming and I love it, and Dooku ending the fight with his signature Force Lightning feels much more impactful knowing who he's doing this to. My only issue with this fight is that I wish we got more time to know these other two Night Sisters better. We get a moment of character from one of them, at first downing Dooku's abilities, only for her to feel astonished that she underestimated him. I don't know, maybe like one more scene to just develop these characters better would have helped, I think. Overall, a great fight that deserves a lot more credit for its unique elements. The fact that some people think this fight is worse than the one in Attack of the Clones is beyond me. This is easily the best fight between these three duelists, considering it has the most development within the fight and some of the best choreography in the prequels. I love the omission of score in the first half of this fight, allowing the sound design to take over for the importance of this fight. Dooku is as cocky and sassy as ever, even if this exchange doesn't have much weight to it. Like, it's only been like a month since you last fought each other. How did your powers double since then? But the rest of the dialogue is solid. I like this moment between Anakin and Dooku. Anakin is not holding back at this point, and his strikes feel more precise. There's some nice cinematography at points. It's a lot more aesthetically pleasing with the space battle happening in the background instead of rock walls. And I think I'm forgetting something. Oh yeah, Dooku gets fucking beheaded in a kid's movie. Not only does Anakin give in to his darkness and beheads him, but we see his fucking head bouncing in the background. And also you see his hands! This also may have my favorite sound design moment in any duel ever. So fucking raw. This is just a great fight. It's not because of nostalgia that I like this fight. At least not all of it. Do it! You just feel the impact that this fight has in comparison to others. And of course, the choreography in the other version is better, but dude, we have another fight in this movie that's like 8 minutes. I'm fine just leaving this at a minute 40. With the hype of Maul's return, the creators of the Clone Wars really need to prove that he's still as threatening as he was before, while also building off of what character he had, which was pretty much nothing, so it's easy pickings here. And suffice it to say, they delivered with his first duel in the show. Maul is not only a physical challenge with his attacks bolstered by his undying rage, but he's learned how to get into Kenobi's head, taunting him about the death of his master and how he did it. He's playing around with his food even more, and cherishing every nerve he hits with Kenobi. But this also shows how unshakable Kenobi is, not letting his rage that we briefly see get the best of him at one point, and he keeps a level head when planning his and Ventress's escape. I also think it's such a fun pairing to have Obi-Wan and Ventress together, allowing for their dynamic to shine even better here. Honestly, Kenobi, if you didn't pedestal worship Satine so much, you might have had a chance with this bald beauty here. I wish we got a moment for Savage to have a similar moment with Ventress about their relationship, since his betrayal was what cost her her revenge. But overall, this duel is badass. The direction, lighting, and cinematography are all fantastic, especially the circling one take at the beginning of the fight, and the shot of Savage being pushed back as Maul lunges forward with a lion's roar added into the sound mix, presenting him as a hungry predator. It's paced really well, it's all coherent, has some amazing character moments, it's just awesome. But seriously, Kenobi, just give her a chance. I've seen the views. The fans approve. Maul and Savage have already proven themselves to be a fearsome duo with their last fight. But this fight solidified that they are a true force to be reckoned with, but they are also weak when they lose all sense of strategy. Their anger and need for dominance can only do so much until their opponent realizes that's all they have. This fight is almost a microcosm of these two's journeys together. They begin with ease, keeping their focus and manage to kill a few Jedi along the way to victory, but once their plans start to collapse in on themselves from the shaky foundation they made, they only have their eyes set on revenge left. Only for that mindset to get the better of them, causing harm to one of them, leaving the other to fend for themselves in a desperate state of loneliness. This may be me stretching what may be another by the numbers duel that the creators didn't much think about, but I'd like to think I'm onto something here. I love that Obi-Wan uses failure as a way of improving his strategy. Adi Gallia underestimated her opponent, thinking one leg kick will do them in, and it cost her. Obi-Wan, as a result, repeatedly attempts that same move to see further results, and that's what ultimately saves him. I feel like at this point in the Clone Wars, there was a lot more thought put into the impactfulness of these duels beyond just having them, and we start seeing more results in the process. I love the cinematography during the corridor section. You can easily tell who's where and what's happening. Maul's theme blasting in the background is badass, and it continues to show how mentally strong Obi-Wan is to keep fighting despite seeing the death of a friend. Awesome stuff. Okay, is the choreography of this fight just two men swinging around their swords wildly? Yes. Does the editing hide a lot of flaws in this fight? Also yes. But does this fight give so much history between these characters and in hindsight have so much more of an emotional hook? Absolutely, definitely, yes. And does it have one of the most heroic, tragic, and badass deaths in the entire series? Fucking duh. I don't think I need to explain any further why this fight is great. And if you want to complain about this being high, just think I'm including the fan-made version that has all the good stuff about this fight and the awesome choreography of the prequels, and make peace with that. Moving on. Yes, as much as I criticize the Ahsoka series for having pretty mid duels, even I have to admit that the episode where Ahsoka faces off against her master in the World Between Worlds was pretty sick. The monkey brain was very much active for this fight, and I apologize for none of it. Seeing Hayden back again in his Revenge of the Sith costume was awesome, and he still does what worked in Kenobi, blending his version of Anakin with what the rest of the canon has given him, which makes for probably my favorite performance I've seen from him as this character. His fighting style feels straight out of both the Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith, with some new moves added like when he pushes his saber forward like Vader did, and when he twists Ahsoka's arm around the hilt of his lightsaber. Admittedly, the moral lesson of live or die is a bit cheesy and ham-fisted, but it does work seeing how Ahsoka is basically carrying the legacy of Anakin with her, along with his son, so if she dies here, what was the point of any of her training or him being a part of her life? It feels satisfying seeing Ahsoka get closure with her master and how despite all the bad that he's done, she won't remember him for that. Rather, all the lessons he's taught and the friendship they shared. As a massive Ahsoka fan, this fight really did have an impact on me. Aside from that, the look of the fight is pretty great. There's some awesome shots like the silhouettes of the two fighting in Mandalore. The editing feels so smooth, and Kevin Kiner composes one of his best arrangements with this fight, especially in the second half. It does feel like the creators cut out a few moments for time, like when we transition from Mandalore to the World Between Worlds, it feels like we missed a scene. I don't know, is it just me who feels that way? But besides that and some of the cheesy dialogue, seriously, this meme annoyed the shit out of me for a while. This was a wholly satisfying fight scene that allowed for my two favorite Star Wars characters to finally have closure with one another.
There's hope for you yet.
This is easily the best training fight in all of Star Wars. While the fight in the Kenobi series was cool, it didn't flesh out the characters in ways we didn't already know. This fight does. To me, this was one of the few times I've actually connected with Sabine as a character and empathized with her. Through this fight, we learn how horrifying the Empire has treated her family, in Mandalore. She helped enslave planets with her weapons, lay waste to civilizations, and destroyed many lives in the process. She abandoned everything in the hopes of escaping a life she hated. This fight transitions from a simple training session to get Sabine ready for her trials with the Darksaber, to an outlet to vent her frustrations, bring out her honesty, and find some catharsis that these actions she took long ago have not shaped her. I almost forgot how emotional and powerful this fight truly is. This is made even better by the amazing voice acting, top-notch editing, and brilliant scoring from Kevin Kiner with his motif for Sabine. I only recognized it because of the Ahsoka series, and knowing that made this fight 10 times better. Of course, being a training fight, it doesn't have that much stakes to it other than getting Sabine ready, but that doesn't really matter. What this fight does for the characters is what matters, and I believe each of them grows stronger because of it. Truly remarkable. As disappointing as the Kenobi show is as a whole, everyone can agree that this scene is the best in the series. Rewatching it, it sorta had the complete opposite effect their first fight in the series had on me. Where that fight gets much worse the more you watch it, this fight gets a lot better. The first time I watched it, I was sorta whelmed by it. It didn't really hit me like I felt like it should have, but on rewatch, it has grown on me so much that it's as high on this list as it is. The choreography flows much smoother and has some really cool moments like the second half with Obi-Wan using his non-dominant hand to face off against Vader, and every time he swings his lightsaber behind him is always a treat. I like many of the callbacks to other fights, like when Obi-Wan says, "I'll do what I must" to start the fight like episode 3, Vader holding up his lightsaber in the same stance as Qui-Gon's, still trying to get into Obi-Wan's head, the back-on-back attack calling back to their training duel in this series, a subtle nod at episode 4 with Obi-Wan calling Anakin God at the end, making for a cohesive explanation as to why he calls him that in episode 4 instead of just calling him Anakin, and a semi-subtle homage at the high ground with Vader on top this time. I'm telling you, Vader's as most petty in this series and I love it. I also like how Obi-Wan uses Vader's suit against him, smashing his breathing device on his chest, giving him the advantage, and that final scene of them just talking and Obi-Wan getting closure with what he thought was his greatest failure. It's emotional and powerful, holding so much depth for these characters and their history. And it's the only time in the series where the filmmaking made the moment better, with a subtle transition from the blue glow of Obi-Wan's lightsaber on one side of Vader's helmet and his on the other, only for the red to completely consume all of it as he says he killed Anakin, and it just makes the moment all the better. And I just love Hayden and Ewan's performances here, making for an even more raw exchange of boiled up emotions. There's still some direction that feels off at points. I wish the rock scene didn't look as goofy as it did, and just for personal reasons, if they just integrated some Battle of the Heroes in the score, I think it would have made for a much more memorable score and a nice callback. I've come to terms with the choice not to, but they could have done it just for me at least. But this fight surprised the shit out of me on rewatch, and I'd say give it another chance.
I sense a presence I haven't felt since Master.
Besides Maul facing off against Obi-Wan again once he returned, probably the reunion we, as fans, were most excited to see happen was that of Maul and Sidious. Knowing everything Maul has done up to this point, once Sidious enters into the mix, we knew Maul was over. And once he did, we see Maul in a state of fear like we've not seen him since he was found in that cave. Sam Witwer's shift in his tone tells you everything this character is feeling, and the commanding presence that lingers over him. Sidious telling Maul he is his rival, and that he's been replaced is so raw, knowing how f***ed Maul is for even trying to usurp his power, and him pulling out both his lightsabers almost like a taunt is so cold. These movements are fierce and chaotic, marks are left on the ground, and Sidious is enjoying every second of it. He literally pulls Maul further away from his throne, down to the grounds of the kingdom he hoped to rule, with a mural of past Mandalorians fighting and killing the Jedi in the background, as if to show the history of violence repeating itself and the ruination that these two men have and will cause. Honestly, I gotta have some respect for Savage for even attempting to face off against the most powerful man in the galaxy, even if it's all folly. Savage's death shows Maul at his most emotionally vulnerable, and develops Savage as a man afraid of feeling inferior, and one that died thinking he was. And Maul's cries of agony and pleas for clemency is the perfect end to this fight, knowing how hard he tried to bring the galaxy to its knees. This fight still remains a masterstroke in visual storytelling through combat. One of my absolute favorite moments from the Clone Wars is Sidious putting the fear of God back into his Phantom apprentice.
Do not worry. I'm not going to kill you. I have other uses for you.
To this point in the Clone Wars, most duels felt like they only existed to satisfy a checklist of things to have in almost every arc in the series, with very little of them having any meaningful consequences. Like, actually count how many times the same characters fought each other, or how many characters actually died from these duels. The tension of these fights started to feel formulaic. We got a few exceptions, but with very little consequence otherwise. But a galactic shift really did happen once Maul was brought back into the fray. Every fight he's been a part of mattered so much for his character and his story, and every fight had stakes in one way or another. And one of his most pivotal moments in his arc was his duel with This duel matters for so many things going forward. Think about it, without this duel, Bo-Katan would never have grown as an independent character. We wouldn't have gotten Ahsoka back to see Anakin one last time. We wouldn't have gotten the Siege of Mandalore at all, and moreover, we wouldn't have gotten The Mandalorian as a show at all if Maul didn't ignite this battle and smite down his enemy. This fight utilizes every aspect of these characters, from Vizsla's technology and weaponry, to Maul's furious attacks from his legs and blade. It's built up to super well with Sam Witwer's brilliant delivery challenging Vizsla, the pounding drums and trumpets in the score, and this shot of Maul igniting his lightsaber with that freaking lion roar back in the sound mix that makes this moment go so hard. Both characters look like they go through hell in this fight, both looking to earn this victory. And the lighting, editing, and cinematography for when Maul strikes down Vizsla shows so well the impact this one moment will have on not just Mandalore, but the rest of the galaxy. Admittedly, the punches that Vizsla gives Maul look pretty awkward, and at some points the editing can be a bit too rapid for me, but this is easily one of the most brutal fights in the whole franchise, holding one of Maul's coldest moments ever. This is easily one of the most heartbreaking duels in the whole franchise. To me, my favorite duo in all of Star Wars has been, and probably will always be, Anakin and Ahsoka. Their mentor-apprentice, brother-sister relationship has been one of the most relatable, powerful, and emotional in all of Star Wars. And whenever I think of either character, their moments together are the first things that pop into my head. They've been through so much together, and I've loved and cared for each other for so long. Now, they are just mere shadows to one another, shades of the past long forgotten. They're both in denial of what has happened to one another and what they've become. There's no way out of this fight, and it just hurts. The fight itself feels so personal and invading, aided by the inclusion of Ahsoka's leitmotif that starts this fight that just breaks me every time I hear it. These two have never willingly crossed blades before. The last time they had to fight, Anakin was trying to save Ahsoka from an evil stuck inside of her. Now, there is no evil spirit nesting inside Anakin, bringing out the darkness within him. Only the hatred and evil of his own self. The cinematography highlights both the emotional distance between them as well as the intimacy of the words they're saying to one another. These strikes hurt knowing that this may be the end of their years-long friendship. I like to think that Vader was hoping that the fall would kill Ahsoka and not his blade. He would still feel the guilt of killing another one of his old friends, but at least the final blow didn't have to come from him. But the fight is not over for Ahsoka, and she keeps going, hoping that that one last quick slash to the head would end it fast, so she wouldn't have to look back at what she had to do to save her friends. Unfortunately, that hope is dashed when she hears the familiar voice of the past.
Ahsoka.
Anakin.
Mixing in both Matt Lanter and James Earl Jones' voice helps sell this moment of meeting both the past and present all at once. Ahsoka is now staring at the eye of the man she once called her master, her brother, her best friend. The framing of the shots are similar to when Ahsoka last saw Anakin before the events of Revenge of the Sith, a perfect parallel to when Ahsoka last saw her hero, to now seeing him as a demon. Kevin Kiner plays Ahsoka's leitmotif with the same woodwind instrument played at the end of The Wrong Jedi, echoing the past made better when she says that this time she won't leave him. We know what outcome has to happen, but we still hope that in some way she still got to him, and it still hurts. He still fully intends to kill the past and show no mercy. Admittedly, it's weird that Anakin still has an eyebrow when he shouldn't, although I like to think this is Filoni's way of saying the original editions of the original trilogy are better than the special editions. And yeah, I think we can all respect that. But to me, this still remains one of the most emotional fights of the whole series. Ahsoka can now go on knowing that she at least tried to save her master from himself, even if it nearly cost her her life. It's a fight that never fails to get me to cry. While the fight in the Obi-Wan series may have given more definitive closure to each character, and I love it for that reason, this is a fight that I personally needed more. We know how Obi-Wan and Vader's stories end from the original trilogy, but we had no idea what was going to happen to Ahsoka from this show. This could have been a similar end for her, but I'm so glad she was able to live knowing she tried. And we now have a more conclusive end to their relationship in her own series that I loved a lot. So to me, this probably remains one of the most emotionally devastating fights in the whole franchise, and one that has stuck with me since first watching it. Okay, now I feel like I have to defend myself here, but please hear me out. To me, this fight has always been one of the most emotionally powerful in the whole franchise. Personally, the arc for Luke in this movie of him learning to embrace his legacy and grow from his past was incredible. Despite winning over his father and the Emperor, he's still a human being and is capable of making mistakes, even ones that result in colossal consequences. But what makes him an iconic hero to me is his capacity to learn, grow, and be there as the beacon of hope for the people that need it. And that's why this fight is so good to me. In fact, to Luke, this isn't even a fight. This is a way of shining bright as that hero everyone, including Ben, knows him to be. He's hoping that by doing this, not only will no one else die but himself, but he can also get through to someone as conflicted as Ben. I love that at the start of the fight, Ben is the first one to turn on his lightsaber and make the first move. Meanwhile, Luke calmly turns on his lightsaber, his father's lightsaber, and when Ben goes in to strike, he lowers his lightsaber down and swiftly dodges the attack. Yes, he's being a troll for both having his father's lightsaber, which was already broken from one of the previous scenes, and of course, just being a force projection, but it's in the effort to not harm Ben, or at least make it look like he's not trying to hurt him. He's learned from his failures from the past. He knows that the fight will continue beyond him, and that he is, indeed, not the last Jedi. Mark Hamill's performance here is arguably his best in the whole franchise. He channels the heroism and heartbreak of his character so well. Notice how after he dodges Ben's attacks and slides away from him, he's in tears. Like it's finally setting in that not only is Ben really trying to keep hold onto his darkness by killing him, but this really is the last time for him to let the child he failed to protect know that he is sorry for everything. And Adam Driver also gives it his all here as the most afraid and conflicted he's ever been in this trilogy. He sees the man that carved this dark path for him, and he is both angry as hell and is still terrified that he would dare come face him. And when Luke said the same line Obi-Wan said to Vader in episode 4, adding just like his father, Driver's expression changes so subtly from harboring rage to genuine fear, as if he knows he's right. Truly astonishing acting to me. And this isn't even talking about the direction, editing, and cinematography in this scene. In my humble opinion, this scene has the best of all these factors in any fight in this franchise. The direction is sharp as hell, making Luke as massive of a hero figure as possible. Like this shot of him standing in front of the First Order, he's framed to be taller than the AT-ATs on the ground. Or when Ben steps on the ground, the salt disappears, and we see the crimson red underneath. But when Luke slides his foot across the field, there's nothing, cluing us in even more into what's really going on. The editing is so clean and makes each move from the characters flow so seamlessly. Like there's never any quick cuts to be found in this fight, they aren't hiding anything here. They hold on each shot at the perfect amount of time to gain the perfect amount of impact from the frame. And that leads into the cinematography, which is just drop dead gorgeous. It helps that the scenery of this fight has a unique trait to it, being salt covering the red ground that looks like blood underneath. But the cinematography makes use of that, like when Luke steps out to face the First Order, he's framed at the center of the ground, like from the ashes and blood of the people that held on to hope even at the last second. A new hope did emerge. And wide shots like these help bring the samurai influence of Star Wars come full circle as two warriors facing off for one last time to defend their own ideals. And Luke passing on to the Force, looking out into the twin suns one last time with that incredible iconic music backing it, is all I could have asked for from his death scene. All around, this fight is incredible, even if I'm stretching my rules here by including it since they don't actually clash their blades together, but still they wield lightsabers and it's cool as shit. I really can't think much wrong with this fight. It still remains one of my all-time favorite sequences in all of Star Wars, and I can't see a time where that changes. The only reason I don't have it higher, I guess, is just some fights doing what it did, but just a bit better.
We'll handle this.
Yeah, I've been clowning on Phantom Menace fans for defending this movie solely because of this duel between Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Maul at the end, because it's only fair to judge the rest of the movie as well. But taken in isolation, yeah, this fight is nearly perfect. The reveal of Maul gives off such a threatening vibe back with the start of Duel of the Fates. The zero hesitation in Qui-Gon's voice is badass. Even them just throwing off their robes, you know this will be a no-nonsense battle. The music builds up, the lightsabers come out, and immediately each opponent feels involved. Unlike the previous fight in the film with Maul, everything here is in camera with nothing to hide. Even though we know Liam Neeson is an action star now, I love how into it he looks in these shots. I also love that even when a character is separated from the fight, you know exactly where they are within the scene. The environments have a scale to them that feels unique, from the wide hangar bay with corpses of guards and droids scattered about, to the extremely wide light hall with a bottomless pit, to the contained hallway and final room. The only real issue with the editing I could say I have is this weird jump in the edit when Obi-Wan jumps onto the platform Maul and Qui-Gon are fighting on. It feels out of nowhere. But my favorite thing about this fight, besides the brilliant score that heightens this fight to an even higher degree than it's already at, is the break in the middle when each opponent is separated by the force fields. This is where you get a sense of each character and their emotions within the fight. Obi-Wan is tense, impatient, ready to get back into the swing of things and to make a run for his master. Qui-Gon is unmovable, relaxed, and keeps his emotions in check. And Maul is pacing back and forth like a hungry predator, waiting to strike. It does in 30 seconds what the rest of the movie failed to do in the past 2 hours, giving personality to these characters. As much as I love the music here, I also love the restraint it has for the one-on-one fight between Qui-Gon and Maul. Just a subtle lamentation of a sinister choir. And when it comes back in after Maul stabs Qui-Gon, it appropriately feels powerless and hopeless. Once Obi-Wan joins in, I love the small humming of the score to give way to the anger and beastliness of these two remaining combatants. It feels evenly matched, with Obi-Wan cutting through Maul's blade and Maul throwing around Obi-Wan until he loses his lightsaber. I also gotta comment on the sound design here. See, I recently took a sound design course in college, and after watching many documentaries and videos regarding the subject and doing it myself, I have way more appreciation for it than I already had, and this part of the fight has my favorite sounds in the whole sequence. Especially here when the two are down to one lightsaber each, with the echoes and the noticeably different sounds the clashes make. And after many years with Maul, I found myself appreciating the end to this fight way more, knowing where this simple slash will lead these two in the future. It's still admittedly dumb how Maul just doesn't react to this move from Obi-Wan. You could say it's because Obi-Wan's moving really fast for Maul to do anything, or that he just couldn't believe he was able to do what he did. But just like the Windu and Palpatine fight, the filmmaking doesn't do anything to make that feel believable or organic. Okay, so 2 issues with the filmmaking. But overall, I do understand now why many people still hold this as the best fight in the series, because it has almost everything going its way. The filmmaking, the choreography, the visual storytelling, the iconic score, but what's really holding this duel back from being at the top spot is simply because it's attached to the rest of the movie where I cared very little for these characters. If taken in isolation, this would be the best one, but with all the context of the rest of the film, it's still really great, but I still have Jar Jar in the back of my mind. I know people are going to be so mad seeing this fight higher than almost all of Maul's other fights. Sure, it's not as flashiest or the most choreographed fight he's been a part of, but to me, this is his most powerful. This fight has been a long time coming. For nearly 20 years at this point in the franchise, Obi-Wan and Maul have had one of the most ruthless, brutal rivalries in all of Star Wars. A journey between these two that has brought so much pain, suffering, and death. Every fight they've entered into has started the same, with Obi-Wan being his usual snarky, sassy self, and Maul fighting with the rage of the gods. And yet, so much has changed since they last saw each other in Mandalore. Obi-Wan has lost more than just Satine, and Maul has lost everything and everyone. But Obi-Wan has grown significantly into a patient, mature old man, while Maul refuses to change at all. To Maul, this fight is between two men who have nothing left to lose. It was bound to happen eventually, so let's end it all here. It's like Obi-Wan says, this fight is just mending an old wound. What's one more fight? At least, that was, until Maul pushed the right buttons for Obi-Wan to give away that indeed, he has one last thing left to lose. The direction plays like a Kurosawa film, or an old spaghetti western with the music swelling in the background, including a subtle nod to the Force theme that feels very appropriate. The editing heightens the tension even more, cutting closer and closer to each opponent. Obi-Wan changes his stance from his signature pose to the same pose that his master once used before, a way of playing with Maul's mind, like saying, "You already know where I'm going with this, don't you?" And yes, he does. And it costs him everything. If this doesn't show Obi-Wan's growth, using the move that killed his master against his killer, then I don't know what will. But I think what shows the growth from him more is when Maul collapses to the ground. Barely clinging onto life, he catches him and rests his head on his hand. While he hated Maul for what he has done in the past, Obi-Wan is someone who doesn't let any of that control him. He's moved on from this squabble between the two of them, and thus, listening to him as he dies in his arms is his way of seeing a new side to Maul he's never seen or even known about before. He respects Maul enough to tell him the truth that who he's looking after is the one that will bring balance to the Force and make things right. And he'll die hopeful that he'll not be forgotten, that a new day will come, and he wasn't alone when he passed. Despite only being 3 minutes long, this encounter holds so much baggage of these two's layered history. It's a perfect end to this intense and gripping tale of these two warriors fighting to hold on to purpose. The night setting adds such an atmospheric tone to the proceedings. The cinematography makes every word feel more personal. The lighting shows the contrast of these two perfectly, especially with this wide shot of the two, with Maul shrouded in shadows, while the light of the fire highlights Obi-Wan. Kevin Kiner adds even more emotional value to this fight, especially during Maul's death. And I would be remiss if I didn't praise the brilliant performances between Sam Witwer and Stephen Stanton, giving this final confrontation even more of a sense of finality. This is truly one of the most multifaceted duels in all of Star Wars, a conclusion that felt so earned and complete, and shows that a fight doesn't always need to be overly complicated or massive in its environment and scope to be called one of the greatest of all time. It just needs to feel meaningful.
I will do what I must.
You will try.
Wait, what was I saying about a fight not needing to be overly complicated or massive in its environment or scale again? I know people are gonna hate me for not putting this fight at number 1, but allow me to speak my piece. In regards to choreography and setting, This is my favorite duel in the whole franchise. There's so much tension and impact with how the blades touch. The clashes feel more personal. There's a strategy these characters implement. Obi-Wan is keeping his guard up, attacking defensively, waiting for the right moment to end the fight. While Anakin is just an absolute beast, making every slash look like it pains him, charging all of his rage with every swing. This really is a battle between an unstoppable force and an immovable object. I love that they use the environment to build on the battle every chance they get. From the docking platform, to the Senate room, to the rails and beams of the factory, to the lava below, the direction, editing, and cinematography finally feels like it adds to the fight in this movie, then takes away. Though even as a kid I noticed and was always bothered by the changing of the lightsaber hilt between shots, it feels very apparent that there was more in this fight than just this, or this was just a sloppy mistake that shouldn't have happened. If we're getting negatives out of the way, the reason why I don't think this fight is the absolute number one is because it could have been even more personal. You know the moment between Anakin and Obi-Wan on the lava where they just talk and vent emotions? That honestly should have been more throughout the fight, more than just towards the end. Honestly, the LEGO Star Wars Skywalker Saga game and the fan-made Clone Wars version fixes this issue, and despite them being separate from the movie, they heighten the emotions more by making this fight more personal. I know I'm that guy who agrees on the show don't tell rule, but here I want more venting, I want more emotional outrage, I want to cry because this fight had to happen. Instead, that emotion's only saved for the final quarter of this match. I still feel something within this fight because I know the history between these characters due to the outside material of this film, but I wish the fight allowed for more of that history to be shown. But I'm able to forgive this flaw in this fight because there's one thing this fight has that no other fight can claim to have over this. Battle of the Heroes. John Williams has been a GOAT for decades now, and especially for every fight in this franchise, he's rarely missed. Even for the ones on the bottom, he was at least cooking just a tiny bit. But to me, his music for this fight, specifically for the final stretch of it, has to be my favorite piece of music in not just Star Wars, not just John Williams' career, but in any fight scene of all time. The solemn, powerful choir and the hellish brass instruments gives this fight a sense of finality. Like this really is the end of a friendship and a clash to decide the fate of the galaxy. The strings heighten the tension as we move from setting to setting. The inclusion of the Force theme in the middle with this sinister twist to it by the trumpets helps double down these two's diverging paths and differing views on the Force itself. In the final bit, as Obi-Wan lands on a certain rocky hill, and Anakin goes too far in a few places, is just the perfect culmination of this intense fight. This is just a perfect stretch of score, and I'm tired of people forgetting about it in comparison to how overplayed Duel of the Fates is. I love that music, but my brother in Christ, we get it already. John Williams wasn't playing any games when composing the score. And while I still have my problems with this fight slightly lacking that emotional hit during the fight, Obi-Wan condemning Anakin and leaving him to die felt so raw, mainly due to Ewan McGregor's performance. This fight hurt him more than losing his master and Satine, because at least he had more to lose than just them. But losing Anakin felt like he had just lost everything. Really, despite my personal grievances with this fight, this really is an incredible scene. One of the most iconic of all time, and my honest to God favorite duel of all time. I just think there are other fights that I think have achieved more. As iconic as his first fight in the franchise is, for me, Maul's greatest duel in the series is the only one he wished to not have. For once, he's trying to reason with his opponent before igniting his blades. He may have tried before with Sidious, but he still had every intention to overthrow and kill him. He was just not ready at that moment in time. With Ahsoka, he saw someone he could truly, actually relate to, knowing her pain of being casted out of the only life she knew. He finally feels like he has someone who can understand him since his brother died. And with him being reasonable, we finally find him somewhat agreeable. Sidious has already won against the Jedi, the Republic, and the whole galaxy. What is it to say that Maul and Ahsoka together couldn't stand a chance against him? Ahsoka has every right to join him. Except for the part where Maul planned to kill Anakin to put a damper on Sidious's plans. Yeah, f*** him up, Ahsoka. It's kinda unfair to judge this fight against all the other duels in the Clone Wars, because this easily has the most passion put into it. The cinematography and editing gives this so much energy. They got Ray Park back again to do the motion capture work for Maul, making every move more precise and intense. As well as for Ahsoka, played by Lauren Marie Kim, who moves around so fluidly and elegantly. Maul was fighting out of desperation and fear, while Ahsoka fights out of obligation and pride. The setting of the ruined throne room provides a gorgeous and thematic backdrop for the first half of the fight. Mandalore has become a shell of its former self after Maul killed Satine and Vizsla. He's brought nothing but rubble to this planet. This fight is also bolstered by some of the best music in any fight we've seen. The pounding of the drums building up to the fight acts as almost like a heartbeat for these characters, with each of them becoming more and more angry and emotional. Even in the second half, it never lets up with an added chorus. The changing of the settings heightens the tension quite literally and helps make a very present obstacle for these two. And Maul pleading for Ahsoka to let him fall, only for him to cry out that everyone is going to die, is perfect, and ends the fight in such a sinister and foreboding way. This fight is easily one of the most important in regards to character and story. Ahsoka has finally grown from being another youngling to a fearless leader and warrior, and Maul has revealed the most humanity he's ever shown, but still lets his fear get the best of him. To me, this is the greatest fight these two have ever faced, and the best in the whole show. I'm gonna be honest, I struggled with placing these last two duels. These two are legitimately flawless battles that I constantly look back on as some of the greatest fights in cinema history. But for now, the runner-up for me is the first fight between Luke and Vader. God, this fight is what nightmares are made of. I mean that in the best way possible. This fight is just a survival horror short with glow sticks. Vader has never looked more imposing in a fight before. The backdrop and scenery gets more and more isolating. Luke is the exhausted protagonist trying to escape a monster. From the very beginning, we get what is still my favorite setting to any fight in the series, next to Mustafar, the Carbonite Freezing Chamber. The color palette of blues, blacks, and oranges with the surrounding elements like pipes and steams helps set the scene as if it was a battle in hell and that Luke is about to fight Satan himself. I also love the tension in this opening section. There's no music whatsoever, only the sounds of metal and gas from the chamber itself. Everything in the background is covered in shadow and smoke. Luke looks at his blaster and he knows it's not going to do him any good here, and he puts it down. And then we hear Vader speak with the grandiose of God. He taunts Luke, saying he's both something and nothing all at once.
The Force is with you, young Skywalker. But you are not a Jedi yet.
The silhouettes of the two characters are gorgeous, and all around the cinematography and editing in this fight is some of the best in all of Star Wars. Best exemplified in this opening portion. I love that Luke is the first one to turn on his lightsaber. He's ready to end the one who killed his father, right here, right now. Meanwhile, Vader just hauntingly and slowly turns his on and presses it up to Luke's. And then the fight begins. Already with these first strikes, the choreography is much smoother and tighter than the Obi-Wan and Vader fight in episode 4, since now they have better resources to help them out this time. Even Vader just slashing through a metal pipe helps show how menacing he truly is, that his swings are powerful enough to cut through metal. He's also fighting one-handed here, which just adds to the sort of playfulness he's portraying here. But as his plans start to fail and Luke perseveres despite his weaknesses, Vader starts to notice how challenging this fight will be. Luke even gets the better of him twice when he sprays the carbon at his face and pushes him off an edge, which leads into the second phase of this fight, the corridors below the chamber. It's quiet. The setting is much smaller and contained. There's not as much light. There's a window to the outside that almost looks like a spider web, one that Luke is surely tangled in right now. And then the silence is broken by the breath of Vader and Luke igniting his lightsaber. Now we see Vader switching up his strategy and using his strong connection to the Force to hurtle objects at Luke to confuse and exhaust him. The music is finally brought in here with the Imperial March that fits so well for when Vader has the upper hand over Luke again. And when Luke crashes out the window, Vader looks visibly worried, like he actually killed his son instead of just wounding him. But then we get to the final stage, which is the most aggressive and tense phase of the fight. The setting is completely narrow, nowhere left to turn for Luke. Vader's breathing is much faster. He's vicious and feral here. Luke is mostly on the defensive this time, barely getting an opening. He's finally feeling afraid here. He gets one good hit in, part of Vader where there is flesh to cut. He sounds pained and angry and finally ends the fight in the kindest way he could have after that. Vader cutting Luke's hand feels so raw and unexpected. He's literally pushed against the edge, crawling away from him. And, you know, smaller details here happen, like, I don't know, Vader telling Luke that he's his daddy. You know, just the little things. I don't think I need to go into why this moment is brilliant. We've had 44 years and several movies and shows to know how impactful this moment truly is. Even if my first exposure to it was literally the first movie I've ever watched, so I've literally grown up with this twist since I've started watching movies. And Luke choosing to end this fight with him falling to his death instead of joining his father is perfect, and it visibly devastates Vader. Just what a fight. It's arguably the most impactful battle in the series. Without it, we wouldn't have many of the fights below it. Some fights many consider to be the best wouldn't exist if this fight didn't drop such a bombshell at the end. There's nothing wrong with it in my opinion. The set is one of the best in Star Wars history. The cinematography and editing heightens every emotion in it. The choreography is raw, and the story and character moments here are so impactful. How can it possibly be topped? Well, you switch it to its alternative, skin stupid. There are moments in cinema history that stuck with me for my entire life. Stories that I will be telling for generations to come. And the story of Anakin Skywalker's redemption from the evils that corrupted him will be one of those stories. And it all culminated through this one duel. Yes, it's not as stylized as the Anakin and Obi-Wan fight. It's not as tense as their first fight. And it's not as well choreographed as the Duel of the Fates fight. But it is the most emotionally powerful fight in the whole franchise. This is the ultimate test for both Luke and Vader. Luke must find it in himself to fight the dark side within him while trying to do the same for his father. And Vader must choose where his future lies, in the man he saw as a father that tricked him into becoming the most terrifying force in the galaxy in pursuit of love, or his own flesh and blood that is the last bit of love he has left in his life. The fight is an internal conflict for both, as Luke is struggling to keep up the defensive and not give in to his hatred, while Vader is doing everything he can to get under his skin and to let him know that his faith is misplaced and there's no going back for him. We see moments where Luke gives in to his impulses, like when he goes to strike Palpatine, and overpowers Vader when he kicks him down the stairs. But Luke still knows that in order to save his father, he must not give in. He can't give in. Luke has learned from his previous fight with Vader to not underestimate him. but he could still falter, especially with a greater power there to manipulate him. I also think the presence of Palpatine also bolsters this fight's impact. You would think that the Master, to who we thought was the most evil person in the galaxy, would be cheering on Vader on the sidelines, but the power of his essence within this fight is that he is the ultimate unbiased referee. To him, he wins no matter what. If Vader wins, the Alliance is doomed and the Empire still reigns true. If Luke wins, he'll have an even greater power to wield by his side and the Alliance is still over. Which gives this fight even more weight, impact, tension, nuance, and stakes. The winner is still the loser in the end. The cycle of evil will still continue. Neither party stands a chance against Palpatine, so what's the point in fighting him instead of each other? At least there, results will be met. And this is even reflected in the score, as all we hear is the ominous, sinister hums and lamentations of Palpatine's theme. It permeates the fight as if a raven watches from the distance awaiting who will fall first. Even when Vader tells Luke that he's wrong to think that there's some sort of conflict within him and throws his lightsaber at him, Luke is still headstrong in saving him without continuing this conflict. But as Luke doubles down on his instincts, Vader triples down on his too once he finds out that Luke has a sister. I love the lighting on Luke's face as Vader continues to tempt him. It's the perfect personification of Luke's inner struggle with the light and the dark. And as Vader says that if he can't turn Luke, maybe Leia will, the only light left on Luke's body is his own lightsaber. Luke finally gives in to his urges and lets out all of his anger on Vader. As the music swells, we see a Jedi's fury in full display as Luke takes on the offensive with the intention to kill his father. The camera tracks the two as now Luke stands in front of the stairs of Palpatine, where Vader once stood. We foreshadow the place where all will be decided with the balcony, and Luke finally defeats Vader in a similar position of which he was in before. The symmetry here is undeniable, with the roles reversed this time. In spite of the role he's taken up, and Palpatine's urges for Luke to take his father's place, Luke sees that in doing what he's about to do, he'll be no different than his father. He purges all darkness within him, throws his lightsaber away, and with the score playing the Force theme in the background, he takes his place as a Jedi, like his father before him. And after seeing Luke's bravery and the torture that his master has put on himself and on Luke, Vader finds the strength within himself to join his son at his side, even for the briefest of moments, doing what should have been done long ago. The two stories that I love from this series, the fall and redemption of Anakin Skywalker and the inspiring rise of Luke Skywalker, converge and conclude in this one scene. And to finish with Vader resting on Luke's hands, his mask gone, and him telling him that he was right about him, that he was strong enough to find the love for himself because of his son before passing on to the living force, is what stories are made for. To me, there's no other duel in this series that matches the emotional weight that this fight carries. Everyone completes their arcs in wholly satisfying ways. The music is haunting and triumphant. The editing heightens the tension to an insane degree. It has some of the most striking imagery in all of Star Wars, and I still feel the impact and finality of this sequence, even if the future movies nearly ruined it. To me, there's no other scene in the franchise that encompasses everything I love about Star Wars. A battle of good and evil, and learning that anyone can be inspired and change for the better. This fight still remains the greatest stretch of Star Wars ever, and in my opinion, the greatest lightsaber duel of all time. So that was my list. I know everyone's gonna totally agree with my opinion here, especially for Star Wars fans, but honestly, this list was very hard to make, and I know that there's at least one duel placement here that people are not gonna agree with. I'm prepared for that. Honestly, this was a lot of fun to make, and I'll see y'all later. Maybe not Star Wars next time, but I'm working on a Star Wars video, so we'll see what comes next. Bye!